Hello everybody, my name is Rudy Rodriguez. I work at Lincoln Center as a technical director. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me here as a speaker and a judge. It's been a really fun experience getting to watch all the movies over the last few days and judging them. At Lincoln Center, I work building large-scale storytelling systems, and I teach AI and ML for leaders and practices in design and innovation at Columbia University in the tech management program. So day to day, I sit between artists, engineers, and production systems, and I'm basically maneuvering and translating all three languages and worlds constantly. So what I'm going to talk about today really isn't theory. I usually give this talk, and it's fun because I get to show off a lot of the cool stuff I do at Lincoln Center and some projects that I see outside of in the real world. But I try to always give it a slant, so I tried to give it a little film slant today. And then I'll follow it up with what I'm actually seeing happening in the real world. So 2 years ago, filmmaking required big crews, time, money, and now, fast forward with AI, as you guys are seeing, even the presentations today, ideas are becoming visual in minutes. We have streamlined and completely fast-tracked how we do things, right? In fact, how many people here are shipping something this weekend? Besides the filmmakers, right? Because they shipped something last week, right? But people are using AI and shipping stuff really, really fast now. So AI just didn't improve filmmaking, it completely obliterated the pipeline, right? Faster iterations, in creating a linear, you had a linear system before, now you're going system-based. You had fixed kind of process, now it's responsive. You have authored content, now you have co-generated stuff. And we're not just making films anymore, as a lot of the talks that preceded mine are talking about, we're making systems, right? You're creating new systems to make films, and I think this is kind of what I learned by watching all these movies over the last few days, was that taste over access now becomes really important, right? Directors' choices and the taste is really going to drive the films, and you saw that in all the submissions, right? The really good ones that were also very tasteful. I saw that as like a common kind of thread. You have the AI film flow now, right? But it's not linear. I know I put this in a linear layout, but you can jump from idea to visual. You can go from script to voice and visual, and you could be doing those at the same time. Then you get to edit, and you might have to redo the script, and you're jumping all around now. You already know this, but you have an idea, you know, it's fast, it's noisy, you get it to a script, and you're doing iteration loops, right? Visual, things start feeling real. Audio closes all the gaps, and you're starting to really make the environment, then you edit it, and that's where the taste shows up, right? When you're in the chopping room and you're really trying to decide which content stays, which content goes, that's where your taste is, right? In all these tools, individually flawed. None of them are perfect, but together they're replacing entire production pipelines, as we've seen with all these films this week. So here's where it actually breaks, though. And people have been talking about these constraints this whole time, right? Characters are drifting, motion gets weird, prompting over directing, really, right? Now you're like prompting, directing, everything maybe starts to look the same, right? So the system doesn't understand intent, is what I'm trying to say. It approximates it. And that's where your taste matters. Now we bring it back to the arts. So I'm seeing a lot of AI in the arts, right? I'm in performing arts. We do dance, we do music, we do film, we do theater. And I live mainly in these live system world. Right. So instead of film pipelines, I'm gonna show you kind of what I'm seeing out there in the wild. Bina 48, AI trained robot trained on the memories of an actual person. Oh, I'm not gonna.
To be hands-on and try for yourself. We utilized 3 different AI platforms for this create-a-thon, and participants moved between different stations where they could try each technology one by one. Hilo is a great image to video model as well as text to video model, which helped them better understand what it's like to write a really specific prompt and play with how to extend those clips and begin to tell a story. For Runway, we were really focused on their new video to video model. So that means we input a video and we get out a video.
This is the one on Runway. It's like 2 ninjas fighting in a palace.
So I like the AI did the shadows really well.
Yeah, the AI did the shadows really well.
And then we also allowed folks to play with Hidden Diffusion, which is a custom software that I built along with another collaborator, Aaron Santiago. And that uses a camera feed, like this camera right here, in order to see yourself dancing or moving around the stage as the input and combine that together with the AI so that we are now seeing yourself moving through space all in real time. It was the first time we ever let anyone else besides myself or collaborator into that software that we developed.
The kinetic diffusion AI, like that was the funnest part, by the way.
Because all the props too.
Yeah, it was fun to play with the props and stuff.
You picked your prompt, oh, you're a dog in like a beach, then it would have like a beach background and like you'd have to like do a dog shape, and it was cool. Before I didn't really use AI that much in my life, especially when expressing my ideas, but now being able to learn all about these softwares and how the AI is able to create an output using the ideas you put in definitely changes my worldview on how technology is operating today. But I feel like it was a really great experience, like a good learning experience.
We as artists are going to be extremely needed in this time as we're trying to understand the technology, and as it becomes a bigger part of our society, we're always going to be there at the wheel, helping people better understand it and making sense out of what the computer gives us.
All right, so that was the create-a-thon. AI plus movement, your inputs, dance and sound, your motions being translated into data, and your output is new visual language. This one is AI and archives. So we're gonna do the same.
I'm Catherine Helen Fisher, curator of Dancing the Algorithm, here at the inaugural season of Jacobs Cohen's new Doris Food Computer. I'm thrilled to welcome 15 artists from all over the world who are researching emerging technology and AI's impact on the dancing body.
So in Bodies in Hyperreality, it's generating images in real time, like as you're interacting with it.
It's really an honor to collaborate with Jacobs Pillow's archive team to get their own high-quality images of artists to fine-tune the model we use for stream diffusion.
That relationship between dancer and spectator is taken out from the studio and into a critical space here.
I think that the relationships that we have between bodies and screens and machines are the most profound that exist.
That it allows the viewer to hopefully feel a little bit like the dancer does on stage.
Make them move, make them think, make them feel. If a machine can do that, that really actually shows the creativity in the domain.
Everything gets very heightened, and I feel like you walk away with a deeper understanding and appreciation for the work.
It's really incredible to be working with such profound dancers because I developed software that like really accentuates the human body. Putting that in front of and collaborating with dancers who are so eloquent in the way that they move their body in time and space really is a profound experience for the both of us.
If technology is already always shaping our world, we asked, can it be, instead of a system of control, something that brings us together in celebration so that we can dance with hope together into the future.
All right, so that was AI and archives. The AI that you saw in that video was trained by all the visual and oral materials that the Jacob's Pillow Dance Company has built up over the years. So when you walk up to one of those generators, it would generate a dancer from the past, and based on your body movement, you could make that dancer dance. So, input, historical photos, film, your movement, output, living generative history. So, but this is one of those where you have preservation becoming creation, but authorship gets a little blurry, right? Here's one of those where who owns what and what is really who's really the author of the experience. Now this one's collective body. Let me see if I can do this. Boom. This was at Lincoln Center.
Collective Body is a movement improvisation-based experience in virtual reality. It encourages all of us to come back to our bodies by guiding us through movement to feel and see ourselves differently. In Collective Body, the way participants move is tracked through the headset and interpreted to generate the look of each's own avatar. This avatar represents the way our movements say something unique about who we are. This residency at Lincoln Center allowed us to present the prototype of Collective Body, which tests the technical build and the first movement intentions that are inspired by human movement development. Finally, the last stage of production will incorporate the media wall in the lobby at David Geffen Hall to turn the experience outwards. From an intimate experience of 6 people at a time, a beautiful movement landscape installation will be progressively built in real time by participants themselves. Their expressive movement identity avatar will animate the media wall to live beyond the experience for the public to witness.
So here, the audience becomes part of the system, right? Heart rate, not heart rate. You have empathy being explored through AI and that human movement, right? So AI is starting to predict human movement, but prediction isn't entirely empathy. But this one's really cool because you go in and based on your body movement, as you heard, it generates a unique avatar to your movement. And then as you're leaving the space, we're putting your avatar up on the screen so you can see it as you go, kind of like waving back at you. Another one that had to do with movement is soul paint. Get better at this.
Have you ever noticed?
Similar concepts.
Everyone has a hidden story. This is a chance to explore yours. An experience that brings together
So very similar to the other one, audience becoming a part of the system and not just watching anymore, right? You're participating, you're feeding the system. And these feedback loops become storytelling. Here, heart rate, biodata is deliberately captured, and real-time transformation happens, and you have this responsive output. To the slideshow. So yeah, at this point, these are what people are building now. We're seeing AI films, we're already here. seeing more and more interactive narratives constantly, and now we're starting to see more, especially at Lincoln Center, these generative installations. Yeah, we don't need anybody's permission anymore. We got the tools, we got the access. So, the real questions ends up being, who owns the output? Who trained the system? Who's the author now? And what is consent in these data sets? And yeah, I think ultimately for all of us, what I try to tell people in this presentation, especially in the arts, I try to remind people that AI is the tool, right? It's the paintbrush, and you're still the painter as an artist. What I've learned this week, especially watching all these films, these wonderful films that everybody's done, is how much taste now is important, right? And kind of driving that home. Taste is really going to reign supreme, and that's going to be one of the big differentiators. And it already was for me when I was judging. That was like kind of what stood out, and I wanted to add that to my presentation. And depending on what tools you use or what methods of workflow you're doing, the constraints that you encounter with the different tools, those are going to end up being stylistic, right? All those nuances and what they can and can't do are going to end up giving all the content and all the art we create style. We already have the tools, so really it's like, what are we actually building with them all? Not content, not props. We're creating systems, right? Systems that create stories, that create art, and really that create meaning. And someone here, I think, aside from all the filmmakers that have done great stuff, by the end of this week, someone here will probably make something that wasn't possible like 2 years ago with all the tools that are out here. And that's the bar now. That's where we're at, right? So, thank you. I'm down to take a few questions, but I also like to ask questions, right? So all the filmmakers out there, what are you struggling with right now? Yes.
Thank you. This was wonderful. I found the same thing. I'm Aspen. I create films with AI. And currently I'm translating my dad's novel into a film, right?
Oh, okay.
And so I've created a tool that builds a shot list, and then it's like you said, you're building the system, not the individual shots. You're actually trying to build a system that can create the shots to create the result. I'm struggling with consistency of setting right now, and I'm curious if you have any thoughts or tips on how to build systems that, keep things consistent, whether it's setting or characters or mood. What have you seen people doing to keep that consistency?
Different things, really. I mean, then that's one of the main huge constraints of AI, right? Is that its tendency to roam, if you will, right, and kind of deviate off track. Trying to help prevent that, you usually have to start breaking it down into smaller chunks, right? And kind of trying to work with it in bigger formats, if you will, if that makes sense. And really try to hone in on an important aspect of the scene, let's say, right? And really try to make that right, and then you could use that as the base for the other work you're trying to do. I see artists, it's iteration, I guess, what it comes down to too, but that's one of the main constraints of AI.
The second question I had was just around the time that it takes to build something and the time that it takes for the tools to improve and change. So one of the things we'd like to do is make a feature-length film, but I know by the time I get 30 minutes in, the tools are going to be way better than they were when I started, and so the last 60 minutes of the film will look completely different than the first 30 minutes. So what is your advice around building those systems when the tools are changing at the speed of light?
You have a very good point. A lot of the work I even showed you is starting to feel dated, even though we did some of it in the last year, because the artist pipeline takes a couple of years, right? We'll find an artist, and we already have this season planned, so they have to be plugged in. At this point, if we hired you as an artist, you wouldn't show your work until later next year or 2028, right? So you're always gonna have that kind of gap between when you get the money and when you have to do the deliverable, and things will change in between that. Now you can build your system to take that into account, right? Like you have to have research, and if you know your scenes are going to be heightened because of some new technology that you're just waiting for. If you have the time to wait, obviously wait, but if you have deadlines and deliverables, I think it kind of goes back to, that's where you end up leaning in on the stylistic side of it, right? Of the constraints of the tools you're using, and really try to tastefully lean into the style. Otherwise, you have to build that in part of your system, is that forward-looking kind of perspective. Which when we're solving problems, we tend to think about solving them in the now, in the moment, but sometimes we want to solve for the future problems. Really, that's where a lot of companies get success, is solving the future problems. But good question, good point. Yes.
Okay. One last question.
And I'll be around afterwards to talk if you want.
I really enjoyed your presentation, and I have I found you can use AI to do the interaction between the human and art, but I have one question, is because I think the greatest asset about artists is not their gestures, their body move, but their mind. Sometimes I used to be a dancer. I think a lot of times even my gesture, how I move, cannot express how I think, my thoughts. So my question is, do you think in the future, even though I sit here quietly, I can also interact with the art? Do you think AI can do that, even though I'm not moved at all, but there is interaction between my mind and the artwork over there?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't think the biotech is there yet to have you quietly sit there without moving or engaging. Will it be someday? Sure, absolutely. Probably sooner than we think. No, we're always finding new ways to make our art interactive, as you saw one of the first videos with the children, and really trying to create hands-on situations, Art is one of those things that how you engage with it is a very personal thing, right? Some people are very hands-on, and when I walked in the room, I wanted to touch this, it just looks so nice. And some people just go right and sit down in their seat. So if that's the way you want to participate in art, by just sitting there quietly, then whatever art you're looking at is going to have an effect. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So I encourage you to participate in the art. Don't just sit there quietly. But I do believe that one day you will be able to sit there quietly and kind of plug in somehow, whether it's a device, biotech, some implant that you have installed or something, and you're going to be able to interact with art one day. I do believe that. But yeah, again, art's unique like that, because how you interact with it really is different for everybody. So good question though. Very good question. I hope I answered it.
Thank you so much, Rudy, for the amazing presentation. And let's give a applause. Also, we welcome everyone to go to New York to enjoy the show in Lincoln Center.
Yes, look me up on LinkedIn. We have a lot of free shows. Not all of them are hundreds of dollars. Those are just the operas and the Philharmonic Orchestra. But we do a lot of free theater, free music, free concerts in the summertime as well. So yeah, make friends with me on LinkedIn and come visit Lincoln Center. I'll say hi.